This area is the starting area. From the 2D plans, you can see we have treadmills, rowing machines, reception, changing rooms, and weightlifting area. With it being right at the start, the tutorial would be provided in this area. At the start of the game, Magnus is conducting his standard evening workout, and then he'd hear sirens from the outside. After the cutscene, he would be able to be controlled by the player, and the player would be given instructions on how to walk, run, attack, etc. After they've completed the tutorial, they would head out of the level through the double doors near the reception. The camera angle for this section would be top down to clearly show all the different sections. After leaving the gym, the player gets to the pedestrianised street. If they turn to their right after immediately leaving the gym, they would be able to enter the shop through this way. And this is just a simple example of the shop. The player would enter here from off the pedestrianised street, and they'll be able to come and interact with the shopkeeper and be able to use Stud to purchase any additional characters. If they weren't sure which direction to go from there is a poster that would be placed on the wall near the shop. Clearly point them in the correct direction. Between the two trees will be Stud that the player can pick up, and then will then be able to use the Stud to buy additional characters. When they head down the street, there will be the cafe, which will have movable chairs. They will be able to help them get used to the picking up and throwing mechanic. There will be the other shops here, such as the video store along here. There will be the movable trash can. There will also be in this section the destructible flower planter, which with either fit or equip dumbbell weapon. Hit them with that. When they've been destroyed, the player will get more studs. On this section there will be a drinks vending machine to give them the power up. During the cutscene, when Magnus finds out about the road being blocked off, that's when he'll decide to do something himself to try and stop the robbers. So after the cutscene, the player will be able to talk to the police officers, which will be on a path wandering up and down the line to make sure no one crosses it. Magnus will then head off towards the supermarket. We're now off the nice street and into the supermarket. When the player first enters the area, they'll see a cutscene of people running out of the supermarket. In the supermarket there are several different things. We have the section which would be the fruit and veg, the standard aisles, and then the two frozen aisles on the end. At the front here we've got tills and the power-up vending machines. Between the fruit and veg and the till are going to be some more studs. There will be movable items in this area in the form of trolleys, here and sort of here, and then maybe a few more as well, that the player will be able to pick up and throw at our bad guys. Now the bots, there will be two bots that patrol up and down the end of the aisle, and then one bot in the middle of two aisles that also walks up and down. When the player comes over, if it is seen by any of this collection of three bots, the one who sees the player will become the leader, and all the bots in the group of three will then attack the player. The player can deal with the bot using the non-weapon attack, or equip the weapon and attack them with the weight. When enemies have been defeated, they will drop studs. As the player continues through the supermarket, they'll find posters that show directions through the supermarket. For example, this simple one here directs them to the aisle on the end towards the warehouse. If the player finds the area gets a bit too challenging, they can get health from the vending machine and power up. There'll be enemies in this area. It will just be common, easy to get rid of. When all the enemies have been defeated, the player will be able to head off to the warehouse. In this section, the camera will follow the player as they go through the level. Now we're into the warehouse, where you'd be fighting against the area boss. When you enter the area, there'd be a small cutscene showing you the area boss. Straight after that, you'd be into combat. To begin with, he will seek out the player. Wherever you go, he will seek you out and attack. As you fight with him, when his health gets down to around 40%, he will begin to flee from the player more often. So he'll run away and you will have to chase to attack him. However, he will still come back and attack you occasionally. As with the supermarket, in this area the camera will follow Magnus around in a third-person view. When the area boss has been defeated, the player can simply then go into the alleyway. In the alleyway there will be dumpsters, which what the player will be able to destroy. Upon destroying them, they'll get studs. In this area there will be a constructible item. As the player constructs the item from the jumping pieces, it will create the ladder that they will use to climb up the fire escape to get to the first story of the bank. We are now in the bank area, which is the third section. You begin in the offices. These would be office cubicles with base to walk in between. That's where you'd come up fire escape. So in this section, the goal is to get Magnus down the lift into the public sector of the bank so he can face the robbers. But when the player first gets in, the lift will be inaccessible because it will have been sealed off by the automatic security system when the robbers broke in. The player will have to find a key within the office area. The key will be hidden in one of the office cubicles. When the player picks up the key, they'll be able to unlock the lift and get down to the next area. To help point out the way to the lift, there'll be posters on the wall, and there will also need to be additional posters to help point out where the key will be. Just to the side of the offices will be the break room. In here there'll be tables and movable chairs like the cafe. There will be counters that will have microwaves and kettles and other electrical appliances that the staff members would use. There'll also be power-up vending machines. However, this is only a side room, so if the player skips the room, the only thing they'll be missing out on is the power-up. And now for the public area of the bank. When they enter the area, the enemies will detect the player in their radius, and they will all close in to attack as a group, which would use the cohesion behaviour, so the player will have to deal with them accordingly. Again, this area would use a third-person camera view, like the supermarket and the offices. The third-person camera view will also be used for the basement against the final boss. This is the final area where you'd fight against the final boss. When the player comes down the stairs, a cutscene will activate, showing bad guy, final boss, putting money into a briefcase. When he spots the player, he will take out a gun and combat will begin, and the cutscene will end. The final boss will frequently move around the area during combat to try and avoid the player. However, the player will be able to get up to the boss, be able to attack them. The boss will be able to go between the outside area and, of course, inside the vault, and so will the player. When the boss's health gets down to 60%, he'll lose the gun to make it a bit fairer for the player. Also around the area, there will be several of the movable filing cabinets like they were found in the office area that the player will be able to use to throw at the final boss to deal extra damage from a distance. When the boss's health gets down to 20%, he will try to flee from the player, which will mean he will run around the area and stop attacking the player and try to escape, but the player will be able to chase him around and give him a good walloping. When the final boss has been defeated, the end cutscene will display, showing police officers coming into the basement and apprehending the criminal.